On the 305th episode of the 365 Message Center show, we've got dictation support in Outlook. There's also 50 distinct experiences for Microsoft Viva connections. And we've also celebrated the general availability of Microsoft Teams, the new Microsoft Teams. Roll it. And we're back, Daniel.
Yes.
This is going to be a good week. I know it feels, again, like we're coming into, they call it Techtober or Techtober? Yeah, when there's all sorts of announcements and bits and pieces. No, I didn't. Okay. No, it's like they release phones, they release technology. We had Google stuff, we had Samsung stuff. September was Apple stuff. November is Ignite.
Yes. Indeed, Ignite, that conference that used to be great, is coming up next month. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm just, I'm talking about my experience. It used to be great. Yeah. I didn't go last year, so I heard it was horrible. But I'm sure this year will be fantastic experience. So those that are going in person, enjoy. I'm sure they've learned quite a bit. November. So when we go into looking at our messages of basically what's coming in our tenants for everybody, with Ignite happening next month, announcements are kind of slowing down a little bit so that they can make the big announcements. And, I'm sure it's going to be basically all Copilot. But, that's just my inkling. But yeah, so this week we don't have as many messages as maybe like last week. I think we went through quite a few last week.
That's right, but it's not a reason to stop listening right now.
No, absolutely not.
But things to talk.
We actually do. There's one thing that is being retired and gotten rid of, and you need to hear about it. And then there's a new thing that's coming along that's being pushed out to everybody. So we've got to talk about it and get that information in your hands. And while we do that, why don't you go ahead and give us a thumbs up on this video. Make sure that you ring that little bell, ring my bell, and make sure that you get notifications when we go live. Make sure you hit us up on socials at 365MCS. Or in the comments below, and hello to all the audio listeners as well. Give us some
use
comments.
hashtag 365MCS and also hashtag karaoke for this episode because Daniel wants to sing.
Right, exactly. But we'd love to hear your comments on the topics we discussed today, as well as, did we miss a topic, or did you think something else, you heard something or saw something that maybe we can discuss next week. So we'd love to get that interaction going. But I'm really, I want to say excited, but I was trying to come up with a synonym. Be honest, mate. No, I'm trying to come up with a synonym so I don't say excited. It seems like I overuse that. So I'm thrilled. I'm
thrilled.
I'm thrilled.
And recovering from the Power Platform conference and a little road trip, trying to shake a little cold there. So yeah, be kind to Daniel this week. I will be, but you need to be kind as well with your comments and your support.
Why not be kind to me every week?
I know. It's a good point.
Okay.
Good point.
Great. So
there's only so much I can do, Daniel.
Nice. So Darrell, let's jump right in and talk about new teams. Although, it's kind of been out there for a while, but now it's officially new.
Yeah, the general availability tag as the cycle goes. Things are in private preview, public preview, general availability. So they've announced that last week. This was, I'll say the title, announcing the general availability of the new Microsoft Teams app for Windows and Mac. MC679451. Nice to see the two coming together at the same time with, as I observe, the same experience. we can use it across whatever platform. But I will say, Daniel, and you might have noticed this too, there's a new tag for Teams in the browser. What is that called?
Indeed, it is now classic. I noticed that, I guess, a few weeks back, that, Teams is now Teams Classic. So does that make me retro if I'm using Teams Classic?
Yeah, maybe. But Daniel and I have been using the preview on and off for a while. There was the switch that was made available to us, and what that would do is it would download a package that had two distinct installations of Teams. I thought that was pretty clever. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I guess that's done, right? We don't have, once it's general availability, we won't have to do that. But that seemed like an interesting experience, having two downloads and switching back and forth between the two.
I've done it for Outlook as well. And it just means that it's easier for you to try things out without interrupting stuff. But early on, certainly when they were going to public preview, they had this list of things that weren't ready yet. And the advice was that if you needed to do those things, like being able to create a channel,
right, or a team,
something as simple as that, be signed in via the web browser to do those things. Now, that list has got a lot smaller. There are still a few things that some of us, finding. I know. Look, what can you think of off the top of your head? One thing that Teams Premium still doesn't do yet. You can't. I've got one.
Okay.
I use it a lot. When you can change your status, and you actually have an option to do duration. And so I might want to set myself as busy or do not disturb or away or gone for lunch or something. And in fact, lunch was one of the scenarios. And I can do it for a set period of time. And in classic Teams, I can actually set the actual date and time of when it switches back to the previous state. And you can't do that in new Teams yet. Yes, there'll still be a few things. It is 50% faster, or what was it? 50% less memory. Starts up 2 times faster, lets you sign into multiple tenants, switching around between the different tenants that you also signed into multiple accounts can be signed into multiple tenants inside those accounts. And Daniel, consultants rejoice, right?
Yes, no kidding. The whole tenant switching and all that is much improved. Like that whole experience of being able to see things alongside what you're doing, the whole getting notifications and managing those communications and other tenants, that part is definitely a fantastic improvement.
Yeah. Actually, something came to mind too. I'll mention this and I'll probably drop a link somewhere there, but our friends John Moore and Andy Honeycutt did a good deep dive on Microsoft Teams and new Teams and just going through different features and showing how that works. And so, anyway, general availability means that here it is. It is going to be the new default experience. They're quite honest in here in saying that it's near full feature parity, almost all features.
Yes.
So there's a few things to catch up with.
Yeah,
but,
there's. I found the article. It's in a Learn document. So if you search for new Teams known issues, they have a list of things that are coming in October and November that will kind of add and improve the parity. Things like pinning apps in the app bar. Setting hybrid presence and custom duration for status messages. That's supposed to be coming in October. Ability to app mention users in your status note. Those kind of things. There's about 8 items or so that are coming. And then there's 2 that it looks like have not been fixed yet or haven't been set on a rollout time, which is annotations from the presenter toolbar. And PowerPoint Live Standout isn't available yet. So, but if those are things that won't get you, then maybe the new teams will be something that you do want to go back to. I will say, I haven't gone back to it because during my testing and the trials of going back and forth, there was just too many gaps for me at the time. So, but I think I will, try it again now.
Yeah. An honest opinion too, that as a consultant, I'm signed into 4 different accounts, and each of those accounts has at least 2, if not 3, guest tenants that's invited into. And in the background, when you're signing into Teams and it's starting up 2 times as fast, it'll bring you back to that last tenant that you were in, that last account. But it has to, in the background, also sign into all those other things. And I find that just takes a little while. Sometimes I see a few little red exclamation marks that mean that when I visit it and change to that profile, that account, that tenant, it might ask me to sign in again and just refresh that.
Can I just say that I actually don't like that experience of when Teams starts up, it takes you back to where you were. And the reason why is, what if you were in a tenant that you're no longer in? Okay, so you're in a tenant on Friday, and maybe it's with a client or whatever, and they cut it, right? They're like, oh, now you're, contract's done or whatever, and then you come in on Monday, or you take a week of vacation, you come back, and then you bring up Teams, and oh, that's not where, and this is some weird cycle. It logs you out. It says, oh, you need to do this, and it just gets so stinking confused. I would prefer that it would either prompt me when it loads, which tenant I want to go to, to sign it to. That would be nice. Or if it just always goes to my home one, like the one I say is my Signify as my default. It would just always go to that one. Anyway, I know that's a rabbit hole I just went down,
request,
but
though.
I think it would be nice. Yeah.
Because I do sometimes set Outlook up to do that. When you can get it to prompt you for a profile instead of Okay. Yeah. Well, we're solving problems
we are.
already.
Or
with
identifying them.
Availability. Well, what else can we say about this? How is it going to affect your organization? Well, eventually it's going to be the default choice. And that you, as an organization, if you do still have a few things you want to use Classic for, you can roll back. But it's generally available. It's going to become the default choice, and they'll remove that switch for being able to go back. I'm using a Mac most of the time. I'm finding that it does work pretty well. Daniel, I understand you're using a Lenovo. Is it working on your Windows 11 Lenovo machine?
All right, people. This is an inside joke that Darrell's got going on because he understands that using a Mac is probably not the most optimal experience for almost anything. And so he has to pick on me that I'm having some technical issues with my desktop. So that's what that was. So just laugh along with him and let's keep going.
Please do.
So speaking of...
go ahead.
No. Speaking of distinct experiences, I don't know, that's a stretch. Microsoft Viva. Create up to 50 distinct experiences in Viva Connections MC679734.
Daniel,
will tell you.
What is a distinct experience?
I've never liked that phrase. When they rolled this out and they said distinct experiences, I was like, say what? I don't know what you're talking about. And then I look at it and I go, oh, it's multiple home sites. Well, I knew about that, but then you come out with this distinct experiences. I had no clue. Anyway, maybe that's the cold talking, but I just that phrase just I don't get it. Anyway,
get off my distinct experience.
Get off
lawn.
my lawn. So when announced, if you'll remember, this is for Viva Connections. It was announced you could have up to 10. And the world rejoiced when for those people that needed that functionality, and they were like, "Oh, that's amazing!" And then they got told it's not free or it's not included in your licensing. You have to pay for it, and they were like, "Ah, that's sad." Well, but here, I also heard from some people that were like, well, 10's not enough. And so now they're going to have up to 50 distinct experiences. It gives you the ability to target, the desktop, or I'm sorry, the dashboard, the navigation, and the home site experience to 50 distinct groups of people.
Can you remind me, Daniel, when would you use a distinct experience?
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer to that is, if you have multiple companies in a tenant, if you've I know quite a few organizations that have their an umbrella company has the tenant, and then the other companies are in the same tenant. So that would be a perfect example of that. In fact, I have a client right now, financial institution, same boat. They have basically 3 distinct audiences that they like to communicate with, and this would be great for that. So it could also, that's the easy answer. The more kind of complicated answer, and where you get into the do you really need to do that, is if you have a very large department, or a very large, I guess, part of your organization.
Multi-global.
Yeah, multi-global, absolutely, right? Or multi-global.
Global, so that's multiple globes.
Like, wait a minute.
A global organization.
Multi-geo.
I'm talking about like regions. Multi-geo.
Yes.
Multi-geo.
Wow. I said it back, and I'm like,
we'll go Mars, we'll go Venus, sometimes Jupiter as well.
Yeah.
Home worlds, then. Home worlds.
Home worlds. Wow, that's amazing. I hope people are laughing along with us, not laughing at us. So yeah, multiple countries, that would be great. And I think, you could think about multilingual scenarios and all that. So there's a lot of scenarios here where you can get into, hey, I want to have a distinct experience. Now you're going to have to, manage this with great distinct experiences comes great responsibility. So, you've got if you have 50 of these, then you're going to have 50 navigations you're going to have to manage. And so when a URL changes that you've shared in all those navigations, then you're going to have to go and update that URL for all of those navigations. Things like that you got to think through when you're creating these. And then you got to have a governance around it, and you got to have a plan for managing it moving forward. Yeah.
Is there an admin role where you could assign people to managing their own distinct experience for their region, or
yeah, you can set it up to where if you're an owner of that site that is designated as the home site, then you have that permission to be able to do that.
Got it.
Absolutely. So this is rolling out, targeted release mid-November, which what's happening in November again? It's that conference again. Mid-November and expected to be completed by late November. Standard release is early November and hopefully be around by
early December.
Late December. So hopefully by New Year's. And I think for those organizations that are using this, they'll start looking at, well, how can we do this? Can we have a different experience for this group or that group? And again, you just have to weigh the con. Well, it's not really a con, but you have to weigh the management and the governance of having that many, right? And how we're going. But for very large organizations, this is something that I think they will use. So, and when they're creating that governance plan, they could probably, dictate, that out, so they don't have to type it all out, right?
Wow.
They can dictate.
If they could do that, if they could dictate it, we talked about this before we started the show. I mean, when I dictate things, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Oh, right, hang on, I should have put this at the top, not blah, 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 that at the bottom. I think if they could dictate a plan out. But Daniel is referring to dictation support coming to the new Outlook in MC 679312. This is you and I will use Dictation. I certainly have been seen talking to my phone and using voice to text to get text into various different apps. And one of my favorite little ways of creating demo content when I'm showing people features in M365 is, rather than watching me type mistakes and backspace instinctively, is I'll flick on the microphone and dictate into the app. So this is coming to new Outlook. And that's important for people who are using new Outlook. I know there's a few that are sort of a little like hesitant, because there's certain things, again, if we were talking about parity earlier with Teams, the new Outlook is not at parity with a good number of features that people like about Outlook.
Well, would this be in web as well?
Well, yeah, I would expect so, because the new Outlook is very much web.
I'm just not seeing, it say anything about that, but that'd be interesting.
No. And well, go to web now, if you can. I won't do it on my screen so people don't see my email. But
I'm
think
there.
The icon's there, isn't there, to dictate an email? Yeah.
I don't see it.
You don't see it. Okay. Well, I would expect that if it's coming to new Outlook, it's going to be there in the web as well. But you're right. Let's not put words in the mouth of the message center writer for this particular feature. But yeah, it's going to be a good thing. Dictate it. Like I liked your advice before, Daniel, was just say what you need to say, go back and edit it after you've dictated the bulk of the stuff. There's no way, unless you're used to dictating to someone beside you, that you'll get it right first time. So this is standard release, rolling out to production with a capital P in mid-November, and will be complete early December. Yes.
Indeed.
Oh, hey, we talked about it being available for new Outlook. If you look at the service monthly active users area, it does list M365 for the web up there. Platform, desktop and web. It's just it didn't have it in the message.
It did say web. Yeah, I like it. I love it. I want some more of it.
Yeah. Now, hang on, just give me a moment. You were going to be doing this next message. I've got to come up with a decent segue. And look, I can't really. Like, how do you come up with a segue for? Oh, I'm going to retire. You take care.
Oh gosh, that was okay. Business Connectivity Services, BCS, retirement. Yes, sir. Microsoft is getting rid of it, kicking it out the door. MC 679737. BCS is a technology that got its life on-prem, and when SharePoint went to the cloud, continued to be there inside. And it is a service that allows you to connect external data and bring it into SharePoint and make available. Things like connect to a table and bring it in as a list in SharePoint. That information. And so you're syncing, right? You have the data there and the data here, right? For those on the audio podcast, I did a little number with my fingers where I was pointing this way and that way. I just did the
I thought those windscreen wipers.
Okay. So Microsoft is retiring it, getting rid of it. Now, let's make sure we understand that this is SharePoint Online, okay? We're talking about in Microsoft 365. We're not talking about on-prem, okay? So there we go. So the rollout here is, and the replacement they're saying is Power Apps. Congratulations, Power Platform team. So you're about to get some more licenses sold. The rollout here is October 2nd. They're announcing it. Well, that was this past week.
Done.
October 30th. They're basically going to honor and start looking at the setting that you could set to block BCS in your environment. So if you want to go ahead and block it, then you could set it, and then October 30th, I don't know what happened there. October 30th, they're gonna recognize that and say, okay, we're going to start blocking it. January 8th is where it gets a bit interesting. January 8th, they're going to say, we're going to block it on all new tenants. So any new tenants from now, they're going to block it. Okay, that's understandable. Get that. As well as tenants who haven't used the feature since October 30th. Now, what does used the feature mean? So does that mean that BCS hasn't synced data in that time frame? Like nothing has updated? Or is it that no one has added a new connection for BCS? Or like, what is... I don't understand that very much. Like, or I don't... That's not very clear to me on what it means by tenants who haven't used the feature. Maybe the feature is
that it's the synchronization.
Maybe,
you know? Like, because
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'm guessing, right? And then September 30th of 2024, fully done. No more using BCS. Period. So you now have less than a year if you are using BCS to migrate that to a different platform, to a different product. And Microsoft is talking here about Power Apps as the solution replacement. However, I don't know if that's true for everything, depending on what you're using it for. If you're, so I won't dive too much into that. We don't have time, but just know that you could be using Workflow, for instance, instead of using just straight up Power Apps. So you could be using Power Automate, but just depends on what you're doing. But guess what, Darrell? You're supposed to guess, not just look at me.
Oh, okay. I think that there'll be a well-orchestrated program for helping you to shift your BCS connections to the Power Platform. Am I right?
That was a very good guess, Darrell. It's 100% completely wrong, but it's a really good guess. Absolutely. So there is no magic button here, people. So that's kind of why you have a year. If you're using BCS, get to it right now. Go ahead and start planning. You're going to need to find where they are. You're going to need to find what the estimated effort it is. You're going to have to work through this. So, and if you need a partner, start looking for partners to be able to help you with this. Just know that you need to get on this right now. So there's some useful links down below on this message, but we've kind of walked you through it and told you all the important stuff. So, it's not, I think it's pretty clear. It's not a blur, Darrell. It's not a blur.
It's not a blur. It's not even the name of a Korean K-pop band.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my transition, though, by the way. You
right. Yeah, blur.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is we're finishing off with a feature that only affects those who are using Teams Premium, but we thought we'd throw it in there and talk about it. It's actually an interesting one. Require background blur. If you've got Teams Premium, you'll have this capability, MC678851. This allows admins to configure, it's actually not just background blur. Where are we? Granular. Yeah, controls admins will be able to show only custom backgrounds, require background blur, or preset an organizational background. And that seems like a good thing to have control over. That it's nice that we can express ourselves with our own backgrounds, and some people come up with some doozies. That's a lot of fun. But if you're an organization that wants to have a bit more, corporate sensibility, or your brand and marketing people want to get in there and come up with something cool like our change out the screensavers every month. Wouldn't it be cool, actually, if sidestepping here, but being able to have a timed background and maybe one that only shows internally versus externally?
See, that's actually exactly what I was thinking. We're on the same wavelength there, because I feel like this whole, don't use a goofy background is very, very key when you have external people in the meeting, and you're like, hey, we're trying to be, and you've got a K-pop band on your shoulder because that's your background. Or some a cartoon, or I see a lot of decks of the on the spaceships, like different Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever. Cool. They look cool, but maybe not for a professional meeting where you're meeting with outside people. So that I think you're right. Spot on there. It would be nice for it to auto select. Oh, someone's joining from outside of the organization. Then it switches.
You can see
that
it,
would be
can't
kind of
you?
interesting
From the roster in the meeting. There's also the question around privacy, right? So maybe it's good to be able to have, at a minimum, the background blur if you're in the kind of space where you don't want people seeing stuff behind you in the office, and you also want to lower the possibility of information leakage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Enforcing a blur.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's a premium feature, and if your organization's using premium, you can enforce that, and it'll be a customization policy in the meeting policies area. And the standard release will begin rolling out early October, so arriving in your tenants now-ish, and will be complete late October.
Indeed.
That, Daniel, is the last message for the week. And it has definitely been good catching up with you and with everyone else who's joined us on the show. We thank you for your comments and your questions and your following, your patronage.
Ooh, patronage. Wow.
Yeah. I know. It's just getting a bit flash, isn't it? I was so proud to hear, Daniel, that you'd handed out so many stickers of the show
many
when you
stickers.
were
so many.
Power Platform. We need to order a few thousand more, huh?
We need a few thousand more. So if you're wanting to, sponsor the podcast or throw us some change, that'd be great, because I'm going to have to order some more stickers. So would love to talk to you about that. And anyway, so thank you everyone for joining, and for episode 305. Join us next week when we will hear Darrell say,
"Oh, come on, you got in there again?" We'll hear Darrell say, "Not again," is what you hear.
Sorry,
because you did it again.
I did do it.
Yeah,
again.
well, you did do it again. But we'll see how that comes back on you.
Yes, I know. Thank you, everyone.
Bye for now.